right.
Cool.
Thank you.
Well, we got all those missing people.
Yes, we do. And some of them may be dialing in as they land, so we'll see. All right, so the first thing I wanted to start with is just say thank you to everybody, because I know it's been a short timeline. We had a short amount of time to get a whole lot of things done. And I really appreciate everybody doing what you've done, and we're doing a great job. So thank you so much to each and every one of you for your flexibility. This week's results, we've got the 2 forfeits, which that was unfortunate that happened with the North Shore team. Shanda, really sorry that you couldn't travel and get that game in. That's a total bummer. And Andrew, thanks for doing that kind of wacky one. And then we got a 1734 score. That's great for the league. I think that's almost 50 points, right? Somebody do the math. Which is what we're shooting for from a referee standpoint. That makes an exciting match. 12-23 is not bad either. So that was good to see. Just some brief stuff from me. You guys know kind of how I run this. And for those of you who are new, I'll just run through it real quick. First of all, we're going to start on time. We might be 1 or 2 minutes late, but we're not going to wait 5 minutes for people. I think everybody's time is valuable. We're going to have coaches. All the coaches are invited to the call. So if you don't mind, when you speak, introduce yourself. Of course, you can read the room. If it's mostly just us, feel free not to do that. Be smart. We can use the emojis to respond to each other on this, use the hand clap, use the thumbs up, whatever. It's just a way to show support for what someone is saying without having to interject. The next thing, management, that's all of us coaches and myself included to some degree, but allow the referees to speak amongst themselves and to speak first, please. Self-awareness thing, does your comment add value? We don't need to just reiterate what someone else just said, and we don't need to take up too much space. Next thing, sarcasm, not helpful. Let's leave it before we come into this meeting. Yield the floor to your quieter teammates. You know who they are. If they try to speak, let them speak. Last thing, if you don't know what someone is talking about, just ask. If you're newer to the group, totally cool. We all started somewhere. I know, don't expect everybody to know everything. And sometimes people use different terms for something that you already know anyway. So just ask. You're probably not the only person with the question. The next thing, if we are going to have coaches on the call, they have all been invited. I'm sure some of you had attended some of the D1A meetings or the ARP meetings where people got pretty defensive, both the coaches and the referees. Not super helpful, but here's the thing. If we're all gunning to be top referees, we have to be able to take what they put on us. It's just part of the learning process. It's going to be hard. It is difficult not to have an emotional response when somebody is criticizing your work, but we do all need to be working to where we're comfortable. If you need to, you just say, I'm feeling a little bit defensive right now. Can we move on to something else and maybe come back to this later? That's perfectly fine. I'm going to back you 100%, and that's what we'll do. Okay, questions, comments, or concerns about any of that? Okay. Awesome. Next little thing from me, when we are filling out our reports in the playlist where we mark things red, yellow, or green, green means you agree with your call. Obviously, everything was good to go. Yellow is for anything that is considered a developmental clip. Red is only for law errors, so you just flat out made a law error. A missed knock-on or a forward pass should be red because that is something that we are expected to see pretty much at all times. It's not a development opportunity, you just flat out missed it. And then the last thing that is red are big decisions that impacted the score or a carding opportunity. So you called something that either made somebody score or not score, or get a card or not get a card. Does that cover all of them? Olivia, Peter, did I get all the reds? Wendy?
Yeah, I think you did.
Okay.
Foul play would be part of big decisions, so missed material foul play.
Missed material foul play. Yes, I agree with you. So yeah, that should maybe be its own little tick box there, but yeah, missed foul play. Cool. And then the next thing is feedback on these things is going to be super comprehensive. It's going to be more than probably what you got from the D1A or NERA. And at times it can seem overwhelming. So that's what your coach is for, right? Take what you're getting from the reviewer that the WPL has assigned you, go back to your coach, work through it, toss the information that you don't need or is not currently relevant to your development, take the stuff that you do, that you can use, and move forward with it. Questions about that? We're all good to go. Super. Last little thing about logistics from me. All flights should be booked. I'm pretty sure all flights are booked. Next thing, confirm your travel with the team the week of. They're just used to either reaching out to the referee, they do have your contacts, or having somebody reach out to them. Seems like all the LROs across the country do it differently. If you haven't heard from your team by like Wednesday, you should reach out to them. It's not cool when the match commissioner has to call me to ask where the referee is and who the referee is. And yes, they have a list, so they can reference that, but still, I'm gonna get a call. So please reach out to your team. Assistant referees, same thing. Try to find your assistant referees. If you don't know who is in charge of the LRO that you are traveling to, send me a text and I'll get you that contact. Joe Burpo is in charge of Colorado, and he asked that everybody just contact him and he'll tell you who your referees are. So if you're refereeing Colorado, Joe Burpo is your contact, and I can get you that email. It's chairman at Rocky Mountain Refs, I think, but
Sure.
I'll get that correct for you. Card process. We don't have one for reporting red and yellow cards right now. So basically at the match, after you've given a card, check with the number 4. The league enters things into CMS. I'm going to pull our card information off of Advantage. So like, I know that we only had one card this weekend. It was Haley Aguiar, and I'll just get the player number and then I'll reference that in CMS. If I can't see the player number, I'll probably call you, but since you've already checked with your number 4, then what's in CMS should be right. So that should work okay, and you're not having to fill out a form. Anybody have thoughts about that? Seems okay? Mostly? Okay. I had something to say about the video reviews, but I don't know what it was. So we'll skip that item. Radios, that's being worked out. They're currently being shipped to some of you for this current week. We'll use that list. It seemed like most of you had filled it out, whether you have radios or not. Payment's going to come at the end of the month. Every month I'll process it with USA Rugby. It's going to come from USA Rugby. It'll be an ACH direct deposit. If you are not set up, I think most of you are, except probably you, Shanda. We'll figure that out too. And then just a reminder that the finals are on 6/24. Okay, all that being done, let's let Olivia drive and we'll go into Advantage and check out the clips for this week. Oh, Chris O'Malley is here. Maybe, Chris, I know you're at Tropical. Do you want, Haley, is it okay if Chris goes first so he can get back to his?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure he's not.
I'm in no rush.
Okay.
The only thing I'm going to do is go meet Terry Haas for a beverage. So there's no rush for me.
Well, that's it's very important that you're out there doing the networking. So yeah, you can have the floor first, Olivia, and let me see. I'll stop sharing, and you can do.
Chris, you should probably preface that you're not reffing this weekend before getting.
So turns out I am reffing this weekend, which
no,
means my
never mind. I'm
beverage,
going to call you
will
out.
be
Okay.
will be water. Yeah, I've 7 games tomorrow, so looking forward to that.
Are you kidding?
Nope, and I was told I was going to have 0, so
Are you getting paid double? 7 is way too many for a day.
it definitely is.
Wow. All right.
Moving right along.
Yep, moving right along. That's going to be our big thing, is keeping on task. So talk to us about your match, and then let's go through clips.
Yeah, so WPL Premier, very excited for the opportunity and to be a part of the league and this match in particular. And I think WPL is a league I can be very successful in, because I know the expectations are so clear, because the players are so savvy and elite. And with that in mind, I really want to work this season to erase the thing that I feel is kind of my major brand as referee, which is being too technical and just too high of a penalty count. That's been a thing that's chased me my entire career. So the big goal, especially for this week, but I think for the rest of the season, will just be an old Leah Berard trick. Just let it breathe, let every decision breathe for an extra second, just to see if I can get away from it, or, decide with a clear process, is this something I have to call? So that was the big goal heading into this match. And I think there's obviously still so much work to do, but I think it was a good step in the right direction. Do you have anything to add, Olivia?
No, I think maybe the email that Amanda sent, we'll use that as the platform, the long-term goals and all of that. Before we go.
Sorry, my fault.
Right here, long-term goals for the season. And then anything of interest in the debrief before we go to clips.
Yeah, long term, kind of like I said, find a way to change my brand away from, those. I don't need another 30 penalty count game unless the game absolutely demands it. So find a way to stay out of the way, don't get involved, and just provide a platform for the teams to show their abilities, with me getting involved as little as possible. That's long-term goal. And I don't think there's anything of note before we dive into the clips, I don't think.
Okay. Which would you like to start with? Side entry?
Yeah, why not? So this is just a point of discussion. It's a clear and obvious side entry, but with those goals in mind of staying out of the way and only calling what I need to and what's going to benefit the game. Is something that has to be called. It's kind of unfortunate for the blue player that gets penalized. Her player ends up going backwards, and she ends up having either don't get involved at all or going from the side. So we can run the clip and discuss. So it's that player with the orange boots kind of comes in from the side. Well, clearly comes in from the side, but did I have to call that, or could we have gotten away without calling that one, is the question.
Well, it's pretty clearly a strong poaching opportunity for New York there.
Mm.
So the probable outcome is New York comes out with the ball, right?
Yeah, especially if the player with the orange boots is removed from the equation.
Yeah. Well, I guess the question is, could you have waited another breath or two to see if New York could come out with that ball anyway?
Can we back that up and watch the actions of white 3, please? The tackler.
Slow-mo, Amanda?
Oh, 3 wasn't the right number. She's white 8.
Yeah, 8. Yeah.
Watch her exit, and let's see how we feel about that.
Exiting south, isn't she?
So I do think one should have come around a little bit more. Her own player on the ground doesn't help her out, but what's our first obligation?
Tackler.
Thoughts about that, team?
I would challenge you a little bit there, Amanda, in that where's the ball? What's the speed and quality of possession? And how much does her role affect that speed and quality?
Well, I mean, the call was for the side entry, right? But did Purple even have a chance to come in from the proper gate due to 8's body placement?
I
So-
agree with Olivia. I think that if 3 is running off to the right, as you look at it, 3 white that is, that purple player is coming in from the left-hand side and the only person with an actual chance of getting the ball or defending it. Because there's 2 white players over the ball straight away. So the rollout wasn't clean, but I think then I agree with Peter. I think you got to let that just come out. You can avoid a penalty there.
I think if you just wait a moment, the rugby gods take care of this picture. I think blue ball carrying is pretty average, to be fair. So the fact that 3 manages to get the ball, like when you blow your whistle, she has the ball in hand. Does her tackler in the way? Maybe, but in the way of an illegal entry, I think the rugby gods take care of this if you just wait a second.
A suggestion, guys, sometimes you can just acknowledge the side entry. I don't have Blue's number, but Blue 8, watch the side. You've verbalized it. You haven't made a decision yet. Then you can see what the outcome of the ball is. And then since you verbalized it, but you didn't paint yourself in a corner, then you can call it if you still want to.
And she knew what she did. We had a moment briefly after this clip where we had the eye contact and she gave me the sorry about that. That was bad wave. So with that in mind, it would have been a easy process to do that downtime management if I had not called the penalty.
Perfect. Next clip.
I'm going to go into the advantage one.
Yeah.
Can I
This
say,
was,
I want to say something real quick. You wrote garbage advantage.
yeah,
Use constructive words for yourself, even if you don't like it.
recyclable advantage.
Yeah, great point, Olivia. That is one thing that we want to work on in this group, is making sure that we try to keep it positive, because it's really hard to be self-deprecating or negative on ourselves, and we're trying to build each other up. So
Yeah, this was something after debriefing with Olivia today. You can see I play advantage for this, and at no point in time do I make an effort to see if there's actually anything that could ever come from it. My eyes stay on the ball the entire time. I didn't check the shape of the offense, didn't check the shape of the defense. Sure enough, we go back 10 meters and I came back for the penalty. Same way, I need to let things breathe around my tackle ruck decisions. Why not let this breathe for a second, give myself a second to look up, see if there's an opportunity. If the answer is no, like it would have been in this case, boom, just blow it.
Well, look at field location. So look at where he is. Be 5 meters in front of the 10. It was slow ball. So the concept we talked about was sometimes the better advantage is not calling advantage. It was a slow ball anyway. We can see it's a slow ball. So the better advantage might be just skipping the time.
Agreed.
does anybody in the group have questions or comments about what we're trying to achieve when we say sometimes the best advantage is no advantage? All right.
Third clip was actually something I was happy with. It's a goal line situation where it's really good work rate, worked really hard to move around, have good view of everything. The thing I want feedback from the group on is I end up super close to some of these breakdowns. Does anyone have like a trigger or a way to give myself a little bit more breathing room, so I'm not doing things like that?
I would think about the turn into the defense. It can work and it has value, but it's like a trend. Everybody's doing it. It's the cool thing to do again. And I would think about that because you're putting yourself sometimes at a disadvantage also.
I'm gonna pull out some Peter words here. 3 steps. Right? Get in, get out, take 3 steps away, whether you're talking scrum, line out, dynamic breakdown, something like this, get in and then get out 3 steps.
I like it.
Referee comments, please.
I have a quick comment for Chris. This is just kind of an in general thing for the last 2 that we were talking about, but then also here, I think here you display a good bit of patience. Clearly around the goal line, like there is that kind of change in mindset. Number 1, do you have a change in mindset kind of midfield to display a little bit of patience? And then number 2, more directly related to this clip, where's your attention focused? And how do you think like focusing your attention to potentially a different place might help you be away from the breakdown a little bit, just like give yourself some more space?
Yeah, I like that. I like the way that's framed. That's really good. Thank you, Andrew.
Anybody else? We good?
Thank you, everyone.
Chris, I added 2 that we talked about.
Mhm.
One of Amanda's things was illustrated for the group. So one of them was your first line out, and then just an illustration of positioning. So it's more, and it's supposed to be, you know, a broader thing. Since we talked through it, I think you could speak to it if you would like.
Definitely.
These are quick. If it loads.
Yeah, I think body was not set up in a place to predispose me to scanning effectively, and in fact, that's something that I've worked to have a decisively different body position to that at ruck time. So to see that I'm not following what I want to do on the field is good to note. When I get the right foot up instead of the left foot up, use that to open up to the left side, do a little bit more scanning, and same thing we talked about around the goal line. Why am I so close here? I think taking those 3 steps out would give me a wider view and more ability to manage that New York offside line.
If I may, somebody told me a trigger once for this exact thing. They were saying between the 15s, the teams are looking to transition from one side of the field to the other. Like it's just a transitionary period. Nobody is really thinking of setting up a platform in the middle. So for us as referees to be in a transitional period or position as well. So like in between the 15s, my coach always tells me to like pick the 9's pocket. So be behind, moving through, like never really stationary because it's a transition. Whereas when you're in the 15s, that's when he's like flat attack, get the shovels out. That's when you go to work because that's when players are taught to either attack the breakdowns. They're either given the green light in the 15s or they're taught to set up their platform and reload. So I don't know, just maybe helps.
Definitely, and I call that moving, you know, kind of behind the 9. I call it the transition position, and really enjoy that because it does so many. It gives the referee the opportunity to manage many things effectively at once. And maybe I should start thinking about how to intentionally add more opportunities to do that in my games, because that would be good here. Especially because look, they're going left. Everyone knows we're going left. Why not start on the right side and transition around the back?
I must not have loaded the
Yeah,
other
it may
one.
just not be in the folder too.
Oh, I saw the line out one earlier, Olivia.
Well, yep, forgot the drop down. I'm sure my internet's faster than Amanda's would be. I don't know what's going on. Okay, this is the start of the lineup. And it's the first one of the game.
Am I taking the lead on some Olivia as well?
Yeah, go for it, man.
Yeah, so I going to the back of the line is something I do the sweeping majority of the time, and that's something I've developed over my entire referee career. And I think there's tons of good reasons to go to the back. I think this game opened up some really compelling reasons for why I need to sprinkle more of being in the front at lineouts. The things that I think did work well here, I like to set a standard with the front lifters. I talk to them about it for the game. I talk about it at the first line. You can see me making sure they understand the gap is their responsibility. I then move to the back. And New York's back line was not far enough back. They weren't on the far side AR. So it's nice being right in front of them where I got their attention, got them to move back. The downside of being at the back is because I'm standing, very near the line of touch. Again, I don't have that wide view. Same thing we kind of talked about at the last ruck example. And something that I did notice in the one lineup where I went to the front of this game was you end up with a direct line from me to the ball to the defending 10, which is just as effective, if not more effective, than as far as getting their attention and getting the response as being at the back of the line out. So strengths and weaknesses to all positions, of course.
Yeah,
Out loud, Andrew.
I was gonna say what Andrew said, but I would go into Chris. Your comment is that you've set a standard, but then you've kind of like run away to like, I think if you're gonna slow it down properly and make sure that your checklist of hookers in the channel and that gap is being maintained. And then moving to the back becomes a secondary issue because I think that's a preference thing. And if you trust your ARs, then that's all good. But I think if you're going to spend that time making sure everyone comes there, you got to have a checklist to say, right, well, what else am I missing here?
Definitely, and I need to have a more what's the term? A more step-by-step process for getting everything squared away at the line out. And I do trust my ARs, and I have them again this weekend. I need to empower them more because there were opportunities for us to work better as a team of three where I don't think I worked hard enough to make sure they knew I wanted as much as they could give me. So that's something I want to do. But first things first is to make sure I'm meeting all the requirements that I need to.
Yeah, this gap's probably pretty small too at the front. No issues because of it, just something to note.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question for everyone. Like, does anyone have a something that changes them from being the front to the back? I guess like the only thing that for me is even no matter who's throwing, if we're close to, which I think that's the try, like right, that's in goal. Yes, right back there.
Yeah.
So when I'm close to in goal, I'll usually stand almost always at the front. Then I'm more in the middle of the field. If I need to go to the back, but Chris, you're so tall that I feel like you can stand more at the front. You just have to work harder, right, to get to move faster once the ball is out. But your height can be an advantage there because you can still hold those players back while being at the front. Just a perspective.
Definitely.
I think you This is Bob. Hi, I think you really keyed it in where you said when I stand at the front, you open up your vision, and I think that's real important because when you do stand at the front, it's like, what are you managing and what do you have the ability to manage there? So you're taking a look at, you're at the front, you have really good line of sight towards the defending backs, but you also have a good peripheral of the attacking side as well. But more importantly, it's the players, and they actually see your presence there as well, right? Especially at the front of the line out. So you have an absolute chance to manage like the entire thing. Whereas you go inside, and it's nothing wrong. A lot of referees go inside for different reasons. You do kind of lose that ability to manage the front, and that's something that you might have to be able to think about and be able to adjust. And I do agree with Haley. Your height is such a great advantage itself, and that to be used. But I think you keyed on it as that you can see what you can gain from being at the front. So I like hearing that.
And that was, Bob, that was exactly what Olivia touched on in our debrief today, was it, being at the front, especially if I'm the first one there, it's a chance. Well, it's not even a chance. It just is what it is. All the players are gonna have to, you'll be in their line of sight. So it's an opportunity to build rapport or do downtime management with them, and just for them to see you. And I had a little mini battle with a specific player all day where it was an uphill battle to earn her trust, and that little touch might have been very helpful. So Olivia said that, and you echoed it very, very well.
It's just funny. I just say it. It's just that our coach always said, if the referee goes in field, throw short. Right. So we always threw short if the referee went in field. So
Okay, we're gonna wrap up this one. Is everybody happy?
Happy.
Cool. I think that's the end for Chris, right?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. We're gonna move on to Haley.
Oh,
Chris,
Haley, start
we have
talking loud,
matching
please.
penalty counts. Oh, go ahead, Olivia. What was
I
that?
said go while I find your report.
Okay. Yeah, Chris, we had matching penalty counts.
Twinsies.
Yay. Yeah. So my match with Orsu and Colorado, we didn't know much with Colorado's being formerly Glendale, so I wasn't really sure what players were going to come out. I'm going to shut my door. Sorry. But I've refed Orsu a few times, and I played with half of their players when I was a player myself, so I have some history with them. So it was kind of fun to see who they were going to be this season, and then also get to see what Colorado brought. And big thing with Colorado, they just pass it out wide for the most part, and just like capitalized on the wings really well, and Orsu just wasn't able to hold them off. So for the most part, it was a really strong match for the first half until Colorado just kind of threw it to the wings and scored a few more times in the second half to bring up that score to 34. But overall, really great contested match. The weather was great for Oregon, but so there wasn't a lot happening in terms of interference of the game with like weather. So it was a really well match, great match. But the clips that I have for my game were, if you want to go to the clips there, yeah. The first one I wanted to talk about was go ahead and pull up the lineup movement. Yeah. So Amanda, in your videos and prior conversations with like DNA, in my mind, the whole movement with the line out, with the players walking vertical and then like moving horizontal, like having to pause, not wasting time. I just want to know what is it we're looking for in terms of wasting time setting up the line out. What is appropriate? What is not appropriate with movement?
Right.
And then also what are we caring about? Like, what is it we're trying to manage? Because I was so fixated on their movement that I feel like I missed the natural setup of the lineup. Cause I was like, was that legal? Sure. So
Sure. Okay, so always keep in mind what we are trying to do, right? We are trying to set up a fair platform from which the teams can compete, okay? And so one of the ways that we do that is by saying, you know, both teams have to be in the line out. So basically, if you approach the line out, if you are within 10 meters of the line out, you need to continue to approach the line out. They can't stop and huddle, and they can't stop 2 meters off the line out. Now, to be fair, what is this hurting? The answer is probably nothing, but we're creating structure. And ultimately, if we let this devolve, then other little things slip. So it's just like, this is your checklist. This is how we do it so that we get better outcomes at the end of it. Does that kind of explain it?
yeah,
It's-
so if they have, those 3 players had
Yep.
started in the lineup, not walked in,
No problem.
this, okay. But the fact they stopped, they're
Stopping
there.
right there is technically delaying the line
Delaying
out,
game.
okay?
Okay.
If you don't have to say anything to them, if they stop for a half a second, if they meander slowly in, you know, we're just going to play on. But at this point where they've stopped, and then you have to look at them and say, okay, come on, get in the line out.
Hmm.
Like, that's a delay. It's not enough for you to do anything about it, you know? So you're just going to tell them to get in. And at some point, if it's bad enough, maybe you'll have to free kick them.
Just a question. I mean, Haley's quite clearly managing the hooker into the channel there, which is probably why they've stopped. Do you not think that that's just good game management?
So I would say every single lineup, Colorado stops a meter off, gathers themselves, walks in, and then does some, usually a horizontal. That one they didn't, but they usually would run up, run back, whatever it was.
Yeah, the one where you kind of stop the line out and then they
I do.
leave the line out 2 feet so they can re-enter the line out 2
Yeah.
feet. We're not going to play with that all season. Okay. If they're in
Yeah,
the line
so
out, they're in the line out. Don't
The
leave.
second half, I was like, okay, I actually need to address this now. And when I did, I felt like I completely changed their game plan. So then in my head, I'm like, okay, I've completely changed how you've been taught how to do lineouts now. And then I felt like I disrupted the game more. So I think is it possible that we can communicate to the WPL like as a whole, as all the teams,
Yep.
that we will be watching for that?
We have communicated it to them the
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm
previous
sure.
2 to 3 years, just like we do D1A and NERA.
There.
And we always continue to have this discussion. So,
Okay.
you know, yes, that is absolutely in my email for Friday, which is tomorrow. Yeah, and it's in my notes for the end of this meeting. So yeah. Anyway, just
Sorry to,
leave
like,
them in.
continue to bring up that conversation, but I
No,
was
I think it's-
surprised to see it, and I was
Mhm.
surprised to get negative feedback from, like, negative reaction from them, but
Yep.
Well, I called Jamie to just chat with her because I wanted to get her perspective, and it's they are not trying to delay, they're just allowing their hooker to call the play based on the defense. So I agree that we don't want them delaying, but I think we got bigger fish to fry
Oh,
also,
for sure. And
right? So
whether
I
this
don't
is
want
a
anybody to
delay or
like
not.
focus in on this, right? Like just get them in, get out. Like,
Yep.
yeah.
cool.
So,
And then the next one, I think, is the scrum one, the 5th down. So this says I have been walking through so many times of my head, like, okay, this step, the process of getting the scrum set up right, and then, you know, the last thing is to make sure the feed is right. And I just decided to not watch, you know, step 69, which is to watch for a proper placement of the ball. So that happened literally throughout the whole game. It wasn't just a one-off situation. It was every single time. And then, you know, White did mention at one point, like, hey, can you watch the feed, which every scrum half does. And I was like, yes, I'll watch the feed. And I never did. And she had a really good reason to point that out. Yeah, the scrum was super hungry, so I made sure to let it get the ball.
okay. And
So
I just
that
want to
was
be
just-
really, whoops, go ahead.
Go
I
ahead.
didn't mean to cut you off.
There you go ahead.
Yep, I just want to be really clear with the team. This is something that we are correcting her positioning. We are not going to randomly free kick them for feeding the scrum.
And if I had addressed it,
Yep.
Orsu is very good at knowing, when the referee is looking and when they're not. And so if I would have addressed it, it wouldn't have been a problem the rest of the game. They would have realized, oh, she's watching, but they knew I wasn't, and they continued.
Perfect. I just want to make sure we're all on the same page and we're all getting the same message out of this. So
There. And then Wendy brought up a great clip of, in my head, I knew that there was Orsu's put in. It was close to White's attacking White's angle. And so in my head, I was, what I expected outcomes of the scrum. And there was a wheeling with the left tight, like the left loose head, being the one driving it. And so I was like, great, loose head boring up, wheeling. And Wendy points out, that's probably not what happened.
So watch Orsu 1.
Yeah, watch, yeah.
Olivia, can you make the screen bigger? Thank you.
Maybe even Zoom.
You won't have
Don't
to. Once you want,
you
once
don't
you know
need
who
to
you're
zoom.
looking for, you
You
won't need
don't
it.
need to zoom. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
Here it
saw
comes.
that, Wendy. I just,
Yeah. It's crafty.
Here we go.
Bye. I'm gonna get a
I'm
penalty.
not sure that was
Well.
crafty or under pressure.
I think that's what I told Haley. I played against her, and it's been 12 years since I played. She is just a crafty prop, and she knows what she's doing.
Yeah, they got what they wanted, I think.
Rob, do you have any comments on that scrum?
She just kickstands out, doesn't she? She just just opens up. So if I was Colorado, I'd probably have a word after, but I can easily see why you interpret it that way. But when you see it back, she's very smart. At the next level, she would get penalised for that. So it's just being aware of that sort. But I can definitely see why you made the decision that you did.
Yeah, it's all those things we talk about. The pressure is going in the direction. It's everything we tell you to look for that penalty. But yeah.
Which is frustrating because, right, I'm thinking of expected outcomes. I'm thinking about what's the first thing I'm going to look for after with the drive. They drive forward one, and then the next step is the turn. And I was I'm watching for that one player at a time. So I did talk to at the next scrum, I did talk to the player at the next scrum to make sure that, I was addressing that player. So maybe if it happened again, I would have caught the kickstand response, because I would have known or hoped that player would change behavior. But yeah, it was not in my toolbox at that time.
When you look as well, like when we're coaching, so we're trying to get the props first off to win the bind. So that's like a first little trigger for you, the referee who's won the bind. Then we're trying to get them to win the set. So who's loaded. And so normally 9 times out of 10, if they've got those two things right, they're going to be in a strong position. Then they have their unison, then they've got stability. So as they get across the tunnel, that's when a loose head is most probably going to kickstand out. And so if the tight head is staying square, as you can see, I believe Sam is here. You can see that she's really staying square. When you piece those things together, then it sometimes helps. But again, completely understand why you made the decision that you did. But all start from us is from a coaching perspective. It starts from the bind, and stability is critical. So whoever's got more stability is normally going to win that race across the tunnel.
Hey Rob, this is Andrew. Really quick. I understand what you mean about winning the set. Totally got that. Could you explain winning the bind really quickly?
Yeah, so basically the bind allows them to basically control their weight distribution. And that's when you're going to see them get into their 1 o'clock with their hips. So that's when they're looking to get their chest and hips through. And then they're basically using that as a weight transition to get strong. And that's when you can see their foot will move back. They're loaded. That's when we say they're loaded. And then it's about getting across the tunnel as aggressively or as fast as they can. And Another good sign as well is negative foot movement. So from a coaching perspective, we're trying to keep as many feet on the floor, and it's really the motion you're trying to see is just chest and hips through, and then a chase. But you should see that with a little bit of unison. You'll also find as well that sometimes the trigger is the hookers, because the coaches are trying to get the hookers to have really good points of contact all the time, even when they're hooking. So less of the traditional strike and more of a angled, so they got good foot contact with their striking foot. Again, that enables stability. So all those type of little things, which are very easy to see on video, can give you an insight sometimes. And that's when you be with your team of three, because you can see, especially when you're in this side, like who's won the bind, and allows you to really feed off each other.
Sure. I'm putting a picture in my head really quickly. Like, could it be like for a win on the bind? I know I've seen sometimes out here we got St. Mary's versus whoever, and their scrum is going to win 9 times out of 10. Sometimes their props are just so well bound that you find the other tight head or loose head is having trouble even making the bind. Would that be a fair kind of picture in your head of like you've clearly lost it at that point?
Yeah, it would be. I mean, a good indication is for a tight head is like if the tight head's lost the bind, they're going to swim over the top. So if the tight head's right shoulder swims over the top, they're going to offer all this space to the loose head, so they get that hook bind, and that's normally a good indication. So tight head should be a bit squarer, and they're almost looking to punch through. So you'll see a lot of props have moved from a tight head resting their hands on their sort of thigh, and they're keeping it loaded like a boxer would, so they can fire through to stay squarer. All those type of things would then enable you to see who's really got the loaded first after the bind.
Sure, thank you.
So the loose heads can get very tight, so they get very shallow, and then you're going to see their elbow drop, which is a good trigger. So they haven't got all the way across. So again, all those type of things are things to look for when the scrum is going down. Doesn't mean that you've got it right, but again, it's just a breadcrumb that is, we look from a coaching perspective anyway.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, then my last 2 clips are it was just a major trend. I really enjoyed my position and my placement on the pitch, but after I left my game, I just felt like I missed offsides throughout the whole game, and I couldn't pinpoint where. Then when I watched my match, I was like, okay, that's marginal. And then when I talked to Wendy, I was like, no, it's a consistent trend. And so both teams had different places that they were essentially offsides. So this is going to be Colorado's. They routinely would be never onsides, I should say, at the ruck on the weak side. And like Wendy brought up a really good point that at this level, we need to keep the integrity of the onsides position, because the teams will randomly or intentionally go weak side when you're not anticipating it, more than I would say I was kind of cognizant of. So Colorado would take away that space on the weak side, and it was particularly number 5 throughout the game for White, their post. Like, she definitely was lining up on the ball rather than like the last foot. Even if there wasn't a ruck, that's when they like really pushed it, or if there wasn't a player from their side. So this is, I don't know if this is the right clip. Yeah, go ahead, play it again.
Haley, refresh my memory. Did you have experienced ARs with you?
I had one referee who is in her first real season of reffing, and then the other AR was in hunter boots, jeans, and a t-shirt.
Okay.
Who is a former teammate / player of mine from Oregon. So no, they were not comfortable with radios, but they did tell me at halftime that there were offsides issues, and it was like not clear.
I was more thinking that experienced ARs help the team see where the offside line is by their positioning. And so I'm assuming that wasn't happening at all in this game then.
No.
Cool.
So that's where 5 constantly would, oh, go ahead, Wendy.
I was just going to say, I felt really bad tagging all of these. And I even went to my wife, who's a former referee, and was like, am I just being a jerk? And, I questioned myself because it was really often on the weak side. But then we started to see flashpoints, other problems. They're creeping up on the back line, on the lineouts. So it built into other areas of the game. So,
And you can
even
see
if
I
it was on the
managed. Go ahead, sorry.
even if it was on the weak side, it's a perception thing also. Like we need to manage the whole field. And then, we have a couple hard penalties on this and you've got a completely different game. I was kind of surprised it was a tight game. And I think we hindered the attack on both sides, I think, unintentionally.
And then Orsu's trend was, I spoke to them at halftime that the third and the fourth defensive player is, one step too far in front. And I routinely was talking to them about that. And this is just one of those clips that you'll see. So this player 13, right? She's just running that, or they're just running that ball line. They're not running the off or the actual offsides line, the last foot of their ruck. And it was, constant, where this one's, not material, but it was throughout the game. So it was just an interesting trend to have. Both sides have an issue, but just in different placements in their defensive line. So again, not material. She's not material at all, right? 13 is running backwards. But so probably the worst clip to pick. But throughout their game, the other ones, she was material.
I think it becomes material because it was a trend.
And it took my attention. I was constantly having to push them back, which just takes, energy from the game if they just would.
Yeah, but it also impacts the way New York is going to be able to attack because that space is not available for them. So, yeah.
The very first penalty of the match, there was a very clear offsides behind my back. And I knew it was there, but I didn't see it fully. And so then the second breakdown, she was marginally offsides. And then I called that first penalty so they're doing it behind your back pretty well. And then adjusting when you look, which is again, just exhausting to manage the whole 80 minutes, but.
When we talked to Haley a little, I think we put it in the notes, was that, you were really focused on that post and pillar, and that quick scan could have really helped you too, right? Because you could have been like, oh, 13, nope, get back, right? So just that, you were just hyper focused almost on those post and pillar players.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on in the interest of time.
Yeah, that's it. That's my clips.
Cool. I stuck one in because you had a question about this, and I think it's useful for us to discuss it.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite play is the scrum half. I get a free penalty.
I was so angry calling this, and it was so frustrating. And after I talked with Wendy today, she reminded me another option can be stopping the play and giving a scrum. I wanted to penalize the scrum half for just negative sportsmanship, choosing to wheel in a penalty. But then you lose credibility on both sides. So what does the team think an option could be for this?
I think you have to give the penalty when she does that. But I was a 9 and I was I was a very sassy 9 in this exact manner. I think I just texted you, Haley, and I was like, I would have ran at the offside pillars.
Let's let Shanda and Jenny Lou tell us how we should handle this situation. Really interesting to me, especially what you said, Haley. It's really interesting to me that referees have an emotional response to this. To me, that is a referee problem. You or we, that player is offside, and we should be managing that player out of the way or just ringing them up so the 9 doesn't have to do that. That's a response to us not dealing with a situation.
Fair. If she's fed up with me not calling the tackler not rolling away, but I want you to look at how many penalties I had for tackler not rolling away and the ones I dealt with. So I would agree that the 9 is taking the situation in her own hands and trying to get the outcome that she wants, as if the referee's not managing it. But that one was, I mean, was she really in the way? I mean, yes, she was rolling. She wasn't in the way. And the 9 was tired because I had penalized her for playing the ball rather than like hitting an intentional knock essentially moments before. And she decided to throw the ball at the player.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I don't think I had too many that I missed of tackler not rolling away. I thought I handled that fairly well. And I can see what you're saying that,
Yeah, if you'd have just told that player stay down, then the scrum half would have played over her. Do you know what I'm
Sure.
saying? That's what
Yeah.
I meant by dealing with the player, not necessarily ringing her up, because I don't think a penalty needed to be there for not rolling away. But if you'd have just told
Okay.
her to stay down, the 9 would have thrown the ball right over her instead of into her. Does that make sense?
No, that was gonna be my question. Like, could you have
Okay.
said
Yeah.
like lay flat or get down?
Sorry, I came across wrong there.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as a player too, if the referee isn't managing what I want them to manage, I'll take them in my own hands too. But so that's what you're inferring. But yeah, that makes sense as well.
Another option I had said was that we could scrum and then have a word with both players. You need to roll away and don't do that again, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was so, I mean, I rolled my eyes. She looked at me and like the hooker, Orson's hooker, like rolled her eyes. She's like, oh my gosh. It's like, I know, but like, what are my options here? Like, I don't know.
Wendy, that was something I saw Nigel Owens do years and years ago, where he did penalize the player for being offside, but then immediately turned to the 9 and said, don't go searching for the penalty. You won't get that again. And so
Yeah.
I think if that's the way, we decide that's how we want to handle that situation, I think that's a good happy medium, because you are penalizing the offside player and you're showing both teams, hey, we're worried about good rugby today.
Yeah, positive play.
Yeah, fair.
I just worry about rewarding her. I'm happy either way.
Cool. Can we move on? Are we all happy? Awesome. Olivia, if you can stop sharing and maybe I can share again. One thing I do want to talk about, and I'm conscious of time because we are up against the wall here, and I know it's late for East Coasters, but briefly, I did want to address penalty count. Primarily because I'm reading reports where people seem to be worried about the penalty count. So I just want to make sure that everybody understands why we worry about the penalty count. Does anybody want to speak to that or hazard a guess or make an educated statement about why a penalty count is important?
Yes, Peter, it's a real sign that the referee's not managing patterns of problems. You're not changing behavior.
Okay.
I once heard someone say, a perfect game for a referee is if no one mentions the referee when they talk about the game afterward. And if you're calling 39 penalties, they're probably going to mention you.
27.
I went for the hyperbole.
Okay.
So is the issue really that the penalty count is high?
The issue is, I think if you have a high penalty count game, it's less likely that teams were just able to do their own thing. Like we talk about creating a platform for teams to be able to showcase themselves. If the referee is blowing their whistle that much, are we giving them as much opportunity as we can to do that?
Okay.
I think a counterpoint that maybe Amanda, this is what you're trying to get at. Sometimes the game does just present penalties, right? That will happen. So when you're on the field, you need to think about, or in your debrief, if you don't want to do a real-time analysis to just blow up your brain, is to Haley's kind of comment on the 9 hitting the player on the ground. It wasn't your action. You're just observing the action. You didn't take the action. You're just adjudicating it. So was there something you could have done to impact player behavior to shape the game and reduce the penalty count? Or were the players just there to commit infringements on the day.
It could also be penalty choice, perhaps, like,
Yes.
did
Yep,
it end up
strategic.
yeah, the right time in the right place, you get change of behavior. Or if you're rewarding, like a holding on penalty is usually a reward. But are you promoting positive rugby, or are you just a police officer out there, bang, bang, bang?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would, it's sometimes it speaks to like the standard that you're trying to set. And I don't know, like I think sometimes we get stuck in this idea of like trying to directly affect the play as opposed to like facilitating. And I think sometimes when you have high penalty counts, at least I remember in some of my games, you're like, wow, is the standard that I'm trying to set, is it even like feasible or appropriate to like what's happening? And
Right.
why am I trying to set that standard, you know?
Good point. Yeah. So all really, really good points. So I just think as we are writing our reports and as we are starting to develop our critical thinking about the game, that instead of just saying, oh, I had a high penalty count, I've failed, that we really look at what it was about our game that made the penalty count high, because that's really the important piece of it. All right, that's all I'm going to say about that. Thank you. All right, trends for week 1. Let's make sure that our set pieces are set up for success. We did not have problems with our scrums this week, so that was excellent. The teams just, either you guys were managing it and I couldn't really see it on video and you did a lot of hard work, or we just had good scrums this week. So we'll say you guys set it up for success and the scrums were great this week. Lineouts, we can make sure we provide a little more structure for them going into the next week. Arrival timing at the breakdowns, think about how you're moving, that you're coming in on the 45 and when you get there, so that we are penalizing the right things. Also think about if there's not something clear and obvious to penalize, that we think about using an unplayable. There was a really good example in Haley's match, and I think Wendy said, why not an unplayable here? So just remember that is a tool that you have that you can use to get out of jail when it's a mess. All right. Finally, who's coming up this week? We got M. Shea heading out west. We got, oh, I apologize because I should not use nicknames because that is not professional. We've got Emily Shea heading out to Life West, Jenny Lou's going to Atlanta, Marty's staying home in New York, and Chris is back to San Diego.
Amanda, do we have any insight from these teams that forfeited? Is that resolved? Was that just a weird week 1 thing?
So what I was told, and Rob may actually have more insight, I was told it was just a one-off and that it was COVID related and that there should not be any future problems. But also the way it was presented to me was also like, we'll believe it when we see it. So hopefully the answer is no more problems. I'm not sure what happened with Life West in the video. I've asked the match commissioner to try and take care of that for us. Hopefully that won't continue to happen. I did try to impress upon them that there's a lot of things that you all could be refereeing. And the reason that we do this, number 1, because we want women's rugby to be great, but also because we get the video reliably and it's reliably good. So that helps our development.
Amanda, Peter, could you also ask to get complete videos?
Who didn't get complete video?
Well, I'm thinking about what I've gotten in other leagues.
Yes, well, that is all laid out to the WPL in the beginning, and it was on our, I had a meeting with all of the coaches and captains, and that was one of the things that we discussed was that we need, we prefer, like they asked, do you want cut video? I was like, absolutely not, we want everything. So yeah.
We know how to fast forward.
Right. There's something else, something I just lost from my brain, but oh well. Cool. That's all I have for now. Does anybody else have a comment?
Hey everybody, it's Marty. A lot of great conversation this week. So it was great, great call.
Cool. Well, let's wrap it up unless anybody has something, anything exciting, any birthdays, anything anything we want to share? Personal? We're all good? All right. Chris O'Malley, enjoy Tropical Sevens.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Have fun with your 7 games.
Yeah. Oh, look, baby back.
Baby.
All right, I'm
Baby
gonna stay on for
time.
the next 45 minutes to see the baby.